Hello, CA Foundation champs. Hope you all are doing amazing. I'm here with another video to revise your chapter 4 inventories. As we are following the normal structure, first we will look at the important concepts and then important questions, which is important for you to look before you appear for the exams. Yes, let's begin this session, and from the exam point of view, you can expect this chapter coming up for minimum 4 to 8 marks. Sometimes it can go up to 10 also. A simpler one, let's do it in a most convenient way and make yourself comfortable to secure that minimum marks which will appear in your exam paper. Yes, guys, let's begin. First of all, what is inventories? In simpler terms, inventory is nothing but those items which are used for sale in the ordinary course of business. This is for any business organization, and in the process of production for such sale, for consumption in the production of goods or services for sale. So, these can be identified in simpler terms as if there are particular items used for sale in the ordinary course of business, I can just look into this as finished goods, and in the process of production for such sale in the form of work in process, and for consumption in the production of goods or services for sale, it can be my raw materials. This is just a simple understanding of what could include inventories. Now, types of inventories. We will understand the types of inventories depending upon the nature of concerns. See, if there is a nature of a manufacturing concern, inventory for them will be in the form of raw materials, work in progress, finished goods, stores and spares, and some packing material. For example, assume if the manufacturing concern is producing biscuits. So, for them, including raw materials like flour, sugar, water, or any other materials will be part of inventory. And if there are any such products in the semi finished form, assume you're producing a cream biscuit. The outer part of the biscuit is already done, but the cream is in the process of production. That also constitutes your inventory. And then once the product is ready in the packed form, in finished goods, or before packing, that also becomes your inventory. To manage all of these, there could be some small stores or some spares like loose tools that also consists of your inventory. Along with that, the packaging covers will also become part of your stock, because without that proper packing, I cannot send my products outside the market. So that is when it becomes part of my inventory. So from the raw material until it includes the packing stuff, everything will consist of your inventory. This is for manufacturing concern. What could be inventory for a trading concern? Simple traded goods. Because for a trader, he is just involved in buying goods and then selling. So for trader, it just becomes traded goods. Yes. Basis of inventory valuation. How do we value inventory? This is guided by an accounting standard too. You will learn this in detail in your CA intermediate level, but to understand with respect to this particular chapter, we will need to go through the valuation of inventory. Inventory will be valued using two constituents, that is, one is cost and another one is net realizable value. Out of these two, we will take whichever is lower as the value of inventory. Now it becomes as important to understand what includes cost. So cost includes purchase price, that is whatever we have spent with respect to buying the product or raw materials. Along with that, some costs which are to be incurred in the process of reaching from the premises of the seller to the premises of the manufacturer. That could be your freight, octroi, non-refundable purchase taxes. This is very important. Those taxes which are non-refundable in nature will only be part of your cost. And then loading, unloading charges, transit insurance. All these are nothing but nature of expenses which becomes mandatory to incur if the product has to reach the manufacturing premises. So all those which are spent would be included as part of your cost. This can also be considered as your direct expense. What is direct expense? Those expenses which are incurred in order to make the product into finished form is nothing but your direct expenses. So these can also be part of your direct expenses. In this, there are some exclusions. What are those? Storage costs, unless those costs are necessary in the production process. If the product in which the manufacturing concern or the business is dealing, for them, if the storage is essential part of the manufacturing process, that can be included in part of the cost. But here, if it is just normal storage cost, it will not be included. Next, abnormal wastage. Some wastages without any valid probability is nothing but abnormal wastage. So this is also excluded. Administrative overheads, idle time costs, selling and distribution costs. See, whatever list we saw, these are not those products which directly contribute for the product to get ready in the finished form. So therefore, all such things would be excluded. But we saw one conditional attachment with respect to storage cost. I hope this is clear. Next, net realizable value. Net realizable value, we can also understand this with respect to the process of product, that is whether it is in the form of raw material, work in progress or finished goods. But as an overview, what is this net realizable value? In simple words, if you want to understand, this is nothing but the value we can expect if the product is getting sold in the marketplace or normal market conditions. So this can be found out by taking estimated selling price minus selling cost. Selling cost can include all of your marketing activity related cost. It could include your brokerage or commission. Brokerage or commission if you are employing an agent to push your sales, or if you are employing any dealer to create that awareness, or advertisement necessary to affect sales. This becomes part of your selling cost. And normally, damaged goods are valued at net realizable value, because ultimately, when the situation of the goods is damaged, it is almost not in condition to be sold in the normal marketplace. So, henceforth, this can be considered at net realizable value rather than comparing this with cost or NRV and then take whichever is lower. Now, first of all, why did we understand this? See, when we have to value inventory, we will write or record the value based on these two elements. Whether it is cost or net realizable value, we will consider only those whichever is lower out of the two. So as I mentioned, net realizable value can also be understood using in the inventory situations, that is in the form of raw material. Net realizable value in simple terms will be its replacement cost. If the product in the form of raw material is present in the business premises, if I'm able to take it out or sell it, what could be the cost I can expect is nothing but replacement cost, and then work in progress, selling price minus estimated expenses and overheads to complete. This all works on the estimation basis because we are just predicting what could be the probability of incurring such costs. And then for finished goods, it is selling price minus selling and distribution expense. I hope you are able to understand the nature of expenses being considered here. For raw material, it is just replacement cost. For work in progress, we take selling price, but we subtract what? Estimated expenses and overheads to complete, because the product is still not in a completed stage. What all costs are additionally expected to incur to complete, that will be considered. And in the finished goods, selling price minus selling and distribution expenses. Is this clear to all of you guys? I hope you are all able to understand till here. Yes. Further, inventory record system. Now, this is an important theory point. Direct questions can come. Testing on theory part with respect to this topic. What is this inventory record system? See, there are two methods of recording inventories. One is periodic inventory system, one more is perpetual inventory system. First, what is this periodic inventory system? As the name itself says, this inventory system's records are maintained for a particular period, be it for fortnight basis or a month, week, half month, or I mean to say half year or a year. So depending upon that period, inventory records will be maintained. Whereas under perpetual system, the records are maintained on a real time basis. When the issues, that is when the goods or raw materials are bought, that is considered immediately as receipts, and when it is dispatched to respective branches or a particular outlet, that will be treated as issue. So under perpetual inventory system, we can find out the record maintained on real time basis. So this is the understanding of periodic inventory and perpetual inventory. Let's look at some additional points. What is periodic inventory system? It is nothing but the method of ascertaining inventory by taking an actual physical count. That is, you will have to literally physically count the inventory products there of all on hand at a particular date. That is why it is periodic in nature. Whereas perpetual, system of recording after each receipt and issue. That's what I mentioned you. This system is based on physical verification, because on top we saw it depends purely on actual physical count. Whereas perpetual inventory, it is based on book records. It will not sit for the actual physical counting to happen, because the records are already recorded simultaneously as and when the issues and receipts happen. This system provides information about inventory and cost of goods sold at a particular date. If a business organization or business wants to know what is the cost of goods sold or anything about the inventory, they have to wait for a particular date until the counting happens. Whereas under perpetual, it provides continuous information about inventory and cost of sales. Anytime if the business or any organization requires details about such cost of sales or inventory, it is available instantly under perpetual inventory system. This system determines inventory and takes cost of goods sold as residual figure. Why are they taking this as residual figure? Residual here means balancing figure. They will not be able to ascertain cost of goods sold using the values available. Simple logic. Why? Because they will wait until the physical count happens and then record the cost of goods sold. So therefore, this will be ascertained as a balancing figure. Whereas in perpetual, it directly determines cost of goods sold, because that is the ultimate influencing point for any decisions to be taken with respect to management of inventory. So it computes closing inventory as balancing figure. See, under both methods there is one balancing figure. Under periodic inventory there is cost of goods sold, whereas under perpetual inventory there is closing stock as balancing figure. Yes, cost of goods sold will include loss of goods not in inventory are assumed to be sold. See, what is the consideration here is loss of goods sold as goods not in inventory. It is literally a loss faced for a business, but they will treat it as if it is sold because it is not present in the business. So this also impacts your cost of goods sold. Whereas under perpetual, closing inventory will include this, that loss of goods as unsold are assumed to be in inventory. I hope you got the difference between both of this. Under this method, inventory control is not possible. Inventory control means what? There could be some activities where wasteful elements could be involved. To avoid such, inventory control activity becomes very important. So in inventory control, there will be systematic procedures conducted. That is, what is the requirement and what is the supply. Depending upon where the wastage is happening, we can definitely cut down, because that is ultimately impacting your cost structure. So under this method, it is not at all possible. Whereas under perpetual, inventory control can be exercised under this system. Next, this system is simple and less expensive, whereas perpetual is a costlier method. This system is used by small enterprises, whereas perpetual is used by medium and large enterprises. Periodic system requires closure of business for counting of inventory. Remember why? Because it is actual physical count. I cannot have people or employees moving around because it definitely disturbs the activity of physical counting. So, when periodic inventory counting is happening, it demands closure of business or a pause given on that particular day. Whereas under perpetual, it is without affecting the operations of the business because everything is maintained on system. I hope you got a clear idea about periodic inventory system and perpetual inventory system. What we saw here, that is cost of goods as residual figure. How can we denote this? We will have our opening stock because that is what becomes relevant, plus current year if there are any purchases, current year if there are any purchases, from this minus my closing stock, I will have my cost of goods sold. This is nothing but your balancing figure. Whereas under perpetual inventory, there is just a small reorganization in the formula. Opening stock plus purchases minus COGS, because under this method my closing stock is the balancing figure. I hope this was simpler to crack. Now here comes the most important point wherein we actually find questions to solve, that is inventory valuation technique. Inventory valuation technique can be understood using two elements here. One, inventory not ordinarily interchangeable. That means it is unique in nature. There is no replacement or there is no substitute found for this. So, exclusive method available to value such category of inventory is specific identification method. Now, what does this method tell? Based on actual physical flow of goods. That means literal counting should happen. It requires keeping different lots purchased separately to identify the lot out of which units in inventories are left. That means every detail, be it for the count of closing stock or be it with respect to purchases or sales, it will be done with respect to physical counting activity. That is why the name it itself suggests specific identification method. Next, if the inventory is ordinarily interchangeable, that means it is homogeneous in nature, it is similar in nature, then we have two approaches. One is historical cost method, one more is non-historical cost method. Under historical cost method, we have two, FIFO and LIFO. There is also average method. We will discuss that in a while. FIFO, in short, FIFO is nothing but first in, first out. In short, we call it as FIFO. What does this method denote? Items which were purchased or produced first are consumed or sold first. As the name itself says, those goods which were purchased first will be used for consumption first itself. Closing stock is the items which is most recently purchased or produced. Simple reason, because we would have already sent out those goods which were purchased on first priority basis. Under first in, first out, those goods which are purchased first will be used for consumption first. So when we have to calculate closing stock, we will just have fresh set of goods which were recently purchased. Simultaneously under LIFO, that is last in first out method, those items which are purchased or produced last are recently consumed or sold first. So those items which were recently purchased or produced in the last clause will be first sent for consumption. Closing stock in this case will be valued at price paid for the earlier lot of goods. So closing stock, if you want to calculate under this method, this will have those goods which were purchased first. I hope you got the difference between first in, first out and last in, first out. Under this, there is one more method, that is average method. Under average, we have simple average and then weighted average. All the different prices are added together and then divided by the number of prices. This is about simple average price. We will be given a different set of prices. We will just add all of them together and then divide it by the number of prices, because this is nothing but a simple average technique to calculate. The closing inventory is then valued according to the price. Whatever value we get, depending upon how many units is remained in the business, we will just multiply it in order to find the value of closing stock. Simple average price does not consider quantities purchased in various lots, because if you observe, the emphasis is just given for prices and not for quantities. So under simple average price, we just play with prices. Whereas under weighted average price, we also consider quantity, that is units also becomes important to consider. How do we calculate this? Total cost of goods available for sale during the period divided by total number of units available for sale during the period. So on numerator we are taking cost, on denominator we are taking number of units which is readily available for sale. Now, cost of goods available for sale. How do we calculate this? That is nothing but the number of quantity of goods present in the business, including any balances which are pending from the previous transaction, multiply it with the price of those respective goods. And number of units available for sale, same thing. We will take the sum of all those total units which is available for sale. You will understand this better while we take up a practice question. Closing inventories. In this case, how do we find number of units in inventory? Multiplied this by weighted average price per unit. Cost of goods sold is nothing but number of units sold into weighted average price per unit. Remember one point here, guys. In this particular chapter, the more emphasis is given on cost rather than selling price. So, any value we take exclusively with respect to closing stock, we make sure that it is shown at cost. So, the approach will be here to first denote cost and then multiply it with the number of units left, that will give us closing stock. Yes, whatever methods we discussed, that was under historical cost method. Let's look at some practice questions and later we will take up non-historical cost method. A manufacturer has the following record of purchases of a condenser which he uses while manufacturing radio sets. The details of what is given: purchase. Following issues were made during the month of December. Records of issue is also given. So these were the details of purchases given and these are the details of issues made. So here, first of all, you should be careful with respect to dates, because here there are set of dates given only for purchases and here issues are recorded. When we are following any particular method, these becomes very important to consider. They are asking us to what? Prepare stores ledger using first in first out, last in first out, weighted average price and then simple average price method. Whatever methods we discussed, based on that they are asking us to maintain a stores ledger. Now what is this stores ledger? In the practical life, this is how the stock of goods are maintained, because one particular stores ledger will give you a complete summary of what is the number of units of quantity left and at what price it is being valued at, depending upon the method which they use. So let's understand, look into how these methods should be applied. Since we already know the meaning of them, using that we will apply how it needs to be presented. So here for this question, I have already presented, because this involves a lot of time. In order to save your time as well, I have just put this stores ledger only for this particular question. Other questions we will literally solve. Yes. So first we are looking at under FIFO method. What is the format of this stores ledger? You will have one date column and then receipts. Under receipts, we will write units, price and then total, that is units into price. Then we will have issue, units, price, total, and then the balance. That is after doing all receipts and issue, what is left in the same format: units, price and total. So first, receipts on 4th, there is 900 units bought at 50 rupees. The same thing we will record on December 4th, 900 rupees bought at 50. So 900 into 50 will be 45,000. On that particular date, there is no other transaction. So we will directly enter that in the balance. Balance is nothing but reflecting your closing balance for that particular day. So we had 900 units at 50, 45,000. Next, as I told, dates are mentioned after December 4th. Next immediately is December 10th. But in between that, there is one issue as on December 5th. So this is first in, first out. We just have one particular purchase done. So in the same purchase, we will make the issue. So on December 5th, there is 500 units. We had bought it at 50. So the same 50 will be shown here. 50 into 525,000. After issuing 50, 500 out of 900, we will be just left with 400, which was bought at 50 and the value is at 20,000. Next, December 10, there is a purchase again of 400 units at 55 rupees. 400 at 55, which will be 22,000. Now, please observe how will this get presented in the balance. This is first in, first out method. It is always better to present it in different chunks because those quantities would have been purchased at different pricing. So, it is always better to show them separately. Remember, we had left out with 400 units from the previous purchase which was bought at 50. I will first bring that down and then add to the balance whatever I purchased recently, 400 at 55. So my values of stock is worth 20,000 one lot and then 22,000 another lot. Next, on December 11, again there is a purchase 300 at 55. Same thing, whatever balances was there, I will first bring that down and then 300 into 55, 16,500. On December 19th, there is again a purchase of 200 units at 60 rupees. 200 into 60, that is 12,000. Same balance is 400 from the previous one, 400, 300 and then 200 into 60. Till here, all of you would be comfortable. Next, coming up here, December 20, there is a issue. Now, this is a first in, first out method. Those goods which were bought first will be sent first. So, 600 is the requirement. Now, what is the priority of goods which are bought first? If you observe, 400 is standing which was bought first. So, first I will issue from that particular lot. 400 at 50, 20,000. But the actual issue required was 600. So I've just given 400 now, 200 more required. So this 200 I will take from this particular lot, 200 at pricing 55, 11,000. After I make this issue, again I have to come with balances what is left. See, this 400 which was bought at 50 is completely gone out of the business. So no balance left in that. In this 400 which was bought at 55, I just sent 200. So 200 is still pending in the business, that will be recorded. Later, same 300 into 55, 200 into 60. Clear? Yes. Next, after December 20th, there is December 28th, which was again purchased 800 at 47. So 800 at 47, which is 37,600. Same balances brought forward. Earlier I had 200 into 55, 300 into 55, 200 into 60 and then additionally 800 at 47. On December 29th, there is an issue of 500. So here, with respect to the first in, first out, I just have 200 bought from first lot. So I will first give 200. The requirement of quantity of issue here is 500. So balance 300 from the next chunk. So 200 is completely done. 300 is also completely utilized. If I just calculate at the end what is the balance left, this is nothing but 200 at 60 and 800 into 47. So in this case, if they are asking you to find out the value of closing stock, this will be the value of closing stock, that is 12,000 plus 37,600, which is 49,600. This was presentation of stores ledger under first in, first out method. So if they are asking you to just find out the closing stock also, you will work out in the same manner in order to get the right values. I hope this is clear. Next, same question, they are asking you to use last in, first out method. Remember, in last in, first out method, what do? Whatever goods which were purchased recently, we will send them first. So keep this in mind and then let's look into the question. Same thing, on December 4th, there was purchase of 900 units at 50. So we will record the same thing here. There is no other transaction after December 4th. Next is December 5th. There is an issue. Only one particular installment of goods were purchased. So we will issue from the same thing. 450, 20, sorry, the requirement of the quantity here was 500. So from 900, we are giving 500 at the same pricing point. So how much will be left? 400 at 50, 20,000. On December 10th, again, there is a purchase, 400 at 55. So we will record the balance as it is. See, till here, it is the same approach what we followed in first out. Same thing again on December 11th, there is a purchase. So we will record all the balances, 400 at 50, 400 at 55 and 300 at 55. December 19th, again there is a purchase, 200 at 60. So we will record, bring down all the balances from the previous date and then record additionally here 400 at 50, 400 at 55, 300 at 55 and then 200 at 60. On December 20th, there is an issue. Issue was for what quantity of goods? December 20th, there is 600 quantity of goods to be issued. Now remember, this is the last and first out. Those which were purchased recently will be sent out first. So the requirement of quantity to be issued is 600. So recently I have purchased, the quantity here is 200. So 200 into 60. Then before that, 300 into 55. The actual requirement was 600. So I require 100 more. So I will pick it up from this 100 into 55. So after making this issue, how much balance I'll be left out with? In this, I'm still left out with 300. So as it is, the first installment is carrying forward with the same values. Next, December 28th, again, there is a purchase. 800 at 47, 37, 600. I will bring down all these balances, 400 into 50, 300 into 55 and then additionally this 800 into 47. December 29th, there is an issue of 500 units. Last I purchased number of units was 800. There is sufficient quantity available for my current issue. So I will take 500 at 47 and if I have to check out the balances, first installment states as it is. Second installment 300 quantity at 55 and then 300 left out of the total 800 bought because 500 is being issued at 47. So this is nothing but your closing stock. 20 plus 16,500 plus 14,100. This was under last in first out method. Similarly, under weighted average price method. Under weighted average price, remember we just saw a simple formula. Total cost of goods available for sale divided by total number of units available for sale. So how do we calculate that? See here, stores ledger format will be same, but like you saw in first in first out, last in first out, we will not write those in separate tranches because this is with respect to averaging the price. So there will be one fixed price with respect to quantity. Finding out that price is nothing but important activity in this particular method. Let's look into how to do this. Same question, December 4th, 900 units bought at 50. So same balance. On December 5th, 500 units was issued. There is only one particular installment. So at the same price 50, we will give 450, 20,000. Next. On December 10th, there is an additional purchase of 400 at 55. Now, the question comes here. Unlike first in, first out, last in, first out, here we will not record this as a separate items. We need only one price to calculate with respect to number of units. So now here, if you observe, the calculation of this price is what the activity here is. How to calculate this? See here, I've made a working note. Numerator includes total cost of goods available for sale. Now, what is cost of goods available for sale? See, from the previous transaction, December 5th, I had 20,000 balance. That is nothing but cost of goods which was spent. Additionally, I had also bought 22,000 as on December 10th. Yes or no? So combining these two is nothing but cost of goods available for sale. See here, that is what we have taken in the numerator, 20,000 plus 22,000 divided by, here we are supposed to take number of units available for sale. Of these 20,000, there is a representation of 400 units and for 22, there is 400 units. So we will add on the numerator cost in the denominator units. So then we will get one average price. This is nothing but the price which we use for further transaction. See here, if you observe, for 800, that is what the price we are supposed to take. This is how we solve under weighted average price method. Yes. Next day on 11th, we additionally purchased 300 units at 55, so it becomes 16,500. Now here if you observe, same logic again, we have to take total cost of goods available for sale. From the previous one, we had 42,000 still available. From the recent purchase, 16,500. See here, 42,000, 16,500. With respect to units, 800 units was already there, 300 additionally purchased. So if I add and then divide, we will get 53.18, which is nothing but the price point for the next particular balance. So total units will be 800 plus 300, so therefore 1100 units. On December 19th, again, additionally there is a purchase of 200 at 60. Total cost of goods available for sale 58,498 plus 12,000 divided by 1100 plus 200. Yes. So this if we solve, we get 54.22. So that is what the value we have taken. 1100 plus 200 will become 1300 units. Later on December 20th, there is an issue of 600 units. See, if it was a first in first out or last in first out, we were looking in the order of distribution. But here there is no such breakup. There is one single price. So easily we can give away. 1300 was the total quantity of balance available, out of which 600 is issued. The price was already available 54.22. At the same price I will issue here. So after issuing, out of 1300, 600 is issued, so balance left will be 700 at 54.22. Next, on December 28th, again there was a purchase 800 at 47. So last price was 54.22. Total cost of goods available for sale will be 37,954 plus 37,600 divided by 700 plus 800. See, 700 plus 800. So this if we solve, we get 50.36. That becomes the price for your next balance. 700 plus 800 is nothing but 1,500. December 29, there is an issue. So price is already taken 50.36. Out of 1500, if we issue 500, we will be left with 1000 units at the same price. So this becomes my closing stock under weighted average price method. Method is simpler. Just be careful when you take the values here for calculation. I hope this is understood to all of you. Yes. Last method they have asked is what? Last method is simple average price method. As we understood this in the explanation, this will not consider any quantity. This will just take prices. So what we do here is, we will revisit the question. See, here we have total of purchases. Total purchases is 2600 units. I also have total of issues. That means 1600 units. Now, total of purchases or receipts minus total of issues if I do, don't you think I get closing units? How much I am left out? So total purchases is 2600 units minus 1600 units. I am just left out with 1000 units. So this is with respect to units. Now I have to also calculate the price. Simple average price. So what I do here is, I have a list of prices being given to me divided by number of prices taken. I will get my average price. So what all values I have? 50 plus 55 plus 55 plus 60 plus 47. Average price is equal to 50 plus 55 plus 55 plus 60 plus 47. Let's just cross check one more time. 50 plus 55 plus 55 plus 60 plus 47 divided by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this, if we calculate 50 plus 55 plus 55 plus 60 plus 47 is 267 divided by 5. This is nothing but 53.4. So if I have to calculate value of closing stock, I was left with 1000 units. Multiply this with 53.4. So I will get 53,400. This is the value of closing stock. Understood? These were all the methods under which category? Historical cost method. This is nothing but historical cost method. Next, most important area, non-historical cost method. That is ascertaining the price of inventories. There are two methods. One is adjusted selling price or retail method. One more is standard cost method. Standard cost method is simpler. This method is exclusively used for a particular sector wherein the price will be decided by the respective board, organization or commission. Example, petroleum industry. You can find all petroleum industry players will have the same price being fixed. So this is nothing but fixed by the respective committee or board. So this is nothing but your standard cost. They will also have the same purchase price. That's why this suitable area for this particular method is those particular sectors which is governed by any particular council or commission or association, etc. Coming to adjusted selling price or retail method. In this method, what do we do is the main ideology here is to value closing stock at cost. But as the name itself says, selling price or retail method. So majority scenarios, you will be given value of closing stock at selling price or those values available at selling price. What are we supposed to do? We have to remove the profit percentage here so that we can get it at cost. So that's why sales value minus percentage of gross margin. How to do this? We will understand this in questions. Yes. X, Y and Z are in retail business. Following information are obtained from their records for the year ended 31st March. Find out the non-historical cost of inventories using adjusted selling price method. See, in this question, it was simpler for you because they have writing and giving it to you. Find out the value as per adjusted selling price method. Sometimes this not be available to you also. How to figure it out? When you see such words, retail business, this is nothing but your identification point to apply these methods. Particular method, you can just follow simple steps. So it becomes easy for you to solve such questions if they are asking you under adjusted selling price method. See, in simple structure, we just need 3 steps to work out. As I mentioned, we have closing inventories. Valuation of closing inventories becomes important here. They are giving us sales price of closing inventories, but what do we actually want? We want closing inventories at cost. So we have to take out the profit margin involved in this. Then we get closing inventories at cost. So the first point here is how to find out that profit element which is involved in this. Simple understanding, we have learned this in our mathematical terms, that is sales minus cost will give us what? Profit. So we will just understand this in this particular form, sales and cost. Sales. What all pointers are available to denote my sales? First, sales during the year and then selling price of closing inventories. Now, we identify this as something called total value of goods available for sale. This is nothing but my total sales. This is nothing but your total sales. Sales means already which has happened. Closing inventories, see if these goods were sold in the market, don't you think this also would be part of my sales? Since it is not sold, which is remaining in the business, I identify this as a closing stock. So what is the proposal which I told? Total value of goods available for sale. So total value of goods available for sale is nothing but my sales plus closing stock at selling price. Now here you should be careful because some questions will definitely trick you here. You can only take closing stock at selling price for this particular value, because what am I finding out here? Total cost, total value of goods available for sale, which is representing my sales. So with respect to the question, what is the sale value given? 22 lakh 45,500. 45,500 plus closing stock at selling price 2 lakh 35,000. 22 45 500 plus 2 lakh 35,000. This will be 24 lakh 80,500. Now I have found out sales proposal. Next is to find out cost. So I can call this as cost of goods available for sale. Be careful with the wordings. It is cost of goods available for sale, not cost of goods sold. So cost of goods available for sale. How do I ascertain this? This is nothing but all those costs included. That is including your purchases, transportation costs, direct expenses involved to make your product ready for sale. Using that, you would have generated some sales. So in this question, what is the cost of goods available for sale? Goods received from suppliers. This is nothing but the purchase price given subject to trade discount and taxes. See, when such things are given, we will always be alert to assume this as a non-recoverable tax. Remember, while we discussed cost, we can only take those into the cost element where taxes would be non-recoverable in nature. If it is recoverable in nature, no, you cannot take it here. So this is subject to trade discount and taxes. That means whatever they are given here, we have to imply the pointers of trade discount and then GST. Along with that, there is package and transportation charges. This becomes your direct expenses. So when they are giving you both discount and taxes, follow the format. That is, first take out the discount because it is a trade discount uniformly applicable, and then on top of that you will add taxes. So 1575,500 minus trade discount at 3%, 1575,500, 47,265, 1528,235. On this GST at 11%, 16,810,6. See, in calculators we are getting 16,810.85. We are just rounding it off to the next whole number. 1528,235 plus 16,810,6. 1696,341. Yes, here we have got 1696,341. This is with respect to purchase price, but what we actually want, cost of goods available for sale. So there was additionally packing and transportation charges given. So this also need to be added, plus packing and transportation charges 87,500, 1696,341 plus 87,500, 17,83,841. This becomes my cost of goods available for sale. So now how to find out profit? Profit is nothing but sales minus cost. So 24,805 minus 17,83,841. So this will result in 6,96,659. This is a profit in absolute number. Can I make use of this to find out, remove the profit element involved in my closing stock? No. It is always better to convert it into percentage. How do we do this? Gross profit percentage. Profit percentage by default will always be on sales. 696,659 divided by 24,80,500. This is nothing but my sales. Total sales 24,80,500. So here we get 28.08 percentage. See, here we are getting a whole decimals. So you should round it off to 2 points. So therefore, we have taken 28.08. If the continuing number is the next whole number, we will again round it off. This is nothing but a mathematical principles which we generally follow. So what we have got here, we have got the gross profit percentage. Now using this, I will eliminate the profit element involved in closing stock. So, closing stock at cost. Two lakh 35,000 minus, because I am removing this, 2,35,000 into 28.08 percentage. This is 65,988. Yes, here we get 1,69,012 as our closing stock at cost. I hope you easily understood the way of solving under adjusted selling price method. Just follow 3 steps, guys. That is, first find total value of goods available for sale. That is nothing but your sales, which is already done. Then closing stock at selling price. Take the addition of both. And then in step 2, take total cost of goods available for sale. You will take the purchase price. If there are some elements like discount, GST or any taxes, make sure you are only taking non-recoverable tax here. Take out the discount first and then add tax, and then if there are any direct expenses, only direct expenses, remember that only those things will be added. That will be your cost of goods available for sale. If we subtract sales minus cost, we get profit, but we want profit in percentage form, so profit percentage will be calculated always on sales. So we have taken total sale value of goods available, we got calculated one percentage, we applied this on the closing stock, which was represented at selling price. When we subtract the value, we get value of closing stock at cost. I hope this was easily understood. Yes. Next. From the following particulars, ascertain the value of inventories as on 31st March 2022. Similar question, but few more variations are there. Let's understand this. Inventory as on 1st April 2022. So they are giving us the value of details as on 31st March 2022. Inventory as on 1st April 2022 is nothing but the opening stock, purchases, manufacturing expenses, selling expenses, administrative expenses, financial charges, and then sales. At the time of valuing inventory as on 31st March 2021, means previous year, a sum of 17,500 was written off on a particular item which was originally purchased for 50,000 and was sold during the year for 45,000. Barring the transaction relating to this item, the gross profit earned during the year was 20% on sales. Now in this question, they are directly giving you the margin on sales. Be very careful to also observe this. Many times it can also be given on cost. We have to only take the percentage of profit on sales. So here it is directly available. See, here other things are similar, whatever we saw in the previous case, but this particular transaction which has been connected to the previous year will also have an impact in the current year. What needs to be done in order to ascertain the value of inventory? See, at the time of valuing inventory as on 31st March 2021, a sum of 17,500 was written off. That means at the point of time of valuing that particular year's closing inventory, there was a writing off of amount up to 17,500. Why do we generally write off? See, sometimes when the valuation happens with cost or net realizable value, since we take whichever is lower, if the product value which was shown previously need to be reduced, we just write it off. That could have happened in this case also. So what they are telling, this was originally purchased for 50,000. That means out of 50,000 we are writing off 17,500. So how much is this worth? 32,500. Now this was sold during the year for 45,000. It was showing in my books at 32,500, but this is being sold for 45,000. Barring the transaction relating to this item, the gross profit earned during the year was 20% on sales. Now what does this line mean? Excluding this particular transaction, because on 32,500 I am able to make 45,000, there is an excess profit. For all other items which is covered here, we calculate profit at 20% on sales. This is the criteria of the question which is available. In this case, can we apply the same steps what we did in the previous situation? What did we do? Sales, and then, yes guys, can we apply the structure what we followed in the previous case? What was the structure we followed? Total sale value of goods available for sale, where we were taking sales and then closing stock at selling price. Compare that with cost of goods available for sale. In this question, why did I ask you that was, is the closing stock value directly available to us at selling price? Please observe, please go through the question. It is nowhere given to us. So we need to find out the closing stock altogether using cost. That is not at selling price, but closing stock at cost. How can we find that out? See, on one side, cost of goods available for sale, that I can easily find out because I have the respective information given as purchase cost, traveling expense and those things. From this, if I subtract, what will you subtract, man? Cost of goods sold. Understand this? My balancing figure, what I get is nothing but closing stock at cost. How? Because both I am taking cost itself here. So cost of goods available for sale, how to calculate? I already know that. Cost of goods sold. Cost of goods available for sale. That is total quantity which was available for sale. Out of that, I am subtracting cost incurred on quantity of goods already sold. So what will be left out is nothing but closing stock, and it is at cost. Now, cost of goods available for sale, how to calculate? We already know. How to calculate cost of goods sold? It is nothing but sales minus gross profit will give me cost of goods sold. Yes? Okay. So first let's find cost of goods available for sale. We have opening inventory plus purchases plus only direct expenses will be taken, that is manufacturing expense. Opening inventory is 1,42,500. Purchases 7,62,500 and manufacturing 1,50,000. Are the remaining expenses which is given, are they in the nature of direct expense? No. So selling expense will not be your direct expense, neither administrative, neither financial charges. So these three will not be considered in cost of goods available for sale. So 142,500 plus 762,500 plus 1,50,000. This is 10,55,000. Next we want cost of goods sold. This is nothing but sales minus gross profit. Gross profit percentage on normal, apart from the transaction which was written off, it is given at 20%. So what is the total sales value available? 12,45,000. Now understand one thing, guys. Of the total sale value given, they are exclusively mentioning that with respect to these particular item, we have all other items considered at 20%. So first of all, I need to bifurcate my total sales into normal sales, because this normal sales gross profit levied will be at 20%, and then abnormal sales. Why abnormal? Simple understanding here. See, we understood the price, the value of the goods lying is worth at 32,500, but this is being sold at 45,000. Just calculate using your calculator. 45,000 minus 32,500. How much we are getting? 12,500. If I have to just cross check with the percentage divided by sales value, that is 45,000, what is the percentage you are able to get? 27.77 percentage, which is not equivalent to 20%. So that's why this becomes abnormal in nature. So therefore, we will bifurcate the values depending upon the respective items need to be taken here. So out of 12,45,000, 45,000 represents abnormal sales, correct? And the balance becomes my normal sales, wherein the profit is 20% minus gross profit. 12 lakh into 20%. So this will be 2,40,000. On this, they had given how much profit? 32,500 was the value. 45,000 minus 32,500. 12,500. How we got this? 45,000 minus 32,500. 9,60,000. So this is nothing but my cost. So if I total both 9,60,000 plus 32,500, 9,92,500. So here I have cost of goods available for sale and then cost of goods sold. Closing stock will be equal to 10,55,000 minus 992,500. This is 62,500. I hope you understood the two variations of questions. We will need to apply the concepts depending upon how the question is framed, guys. But ultimately, the concept clarity is very important here. How to apply what and with respect to what type of information becomes very important in this particular scenario. Yes. Next small topic covered in the same chapter is inventory taking. Now, inventory taking is nothing but physical count of inventories. Why should we learn this? See, sometimes physical counting of inventories normally should happen at the year end, that is 31st March. Due to some uncertain situations, some businesses can carry it before that particular date, that is 31st March, or after 31st March. Due to this, there results a difference with respect to purchases or sales or any particular items, which will not give you a correct value as on 31st March. So we need to appropriate that in order to show the correct picture of inventories as on 31st March. That's what happens in inventory taking. For the year end, inventory valuation, that is physical inventory taking, is done during the last week of the financial year or during the first week of next financial year. Generally, it certainly happens between 25th March to 31st or somewhere between 1st April to 5th April. I am giving the example with respect to 31st March being the year end. Yes, normally enterprises prefer to perform inventory taking on closing day. But practically speaking, sometimes it cannot be carried out on the closing day because we cannot keep it out on the deadline to carry out this inventory taking on 31st March. In such a case, the actual value of the inventories must be so adjusted as to relate it to the end of the year concerned. So therefore, we need to adjust the value of inventories depending upon when the inventory taking activity is done. So let's understand what and how to adjust. Before the end of financial year, after the end of financial year. Now, if we are counting the inventories before 31st of March, what is the objective here? Ultimately, we want the right value as on 31st March. Now, assume, for example, I am doing the inventory valuation counting as on 24th March. So, it becomes very important for me to consider all those transactions which resulted between 24th March to 31st March. Yes or no? So, in this case, we will have to understand the structure. For example, let's take there is purchases. If there is a purchase which happened between 24th March to 31st March, don't you think this purchases will be part of my value of stock as on 31st March? Yes or no? So, if there are purchases, what should I do for inventory taking? I will just add the purchases. So, inventory taking, here I will take the value as on the respective date, then add purchases. Meanwhile, between these days, if there are any sales done, now when the sale happened, do you think this becomes part of my inventory? No, because the goods have already gone out of the business. So if there are any sales between 24th March to 31st March, do you think I have to consider it here? No. So this need to be subtracted. But hold on, can I directly take the sales value to subtract here? No. As I mentioned earlier, in this inventory chapter, the more focus goes on cost. So we will have to take the cost of goods sold. How do we get that? So I will have to subtract sales minus gross profit will give me cost of goods sold. So after doing this addition and subtraction, I will get the right value which was supposed to be as on 31st of March. Similarly, if the inventory counting is done after the end of financial year, let's assume this is done on 6th of April. Now I want the value as on which date? 31st of March. So logically thinking, I do not want any of those which resulted between 1st of April to 6th of April because I want the values as on 31st of March. Now let's take the example. The purchase has happened between 1st of April to 6th of April. Should this include in the value of inventory as on 31st of March? No, it is not at all relevant. So what should I do? I will subtract if there are any such purchases. Similarly, sales which happened between 1st April to 6th April, logically speaking, the stock of goods should be there as on 31st March. From that itself, I can enforce the sales. So if there are sales, what should I do? It should be part of the value of stock as on 31st of March. So here I will add. Again, the same methodology. We will not take it at selling price. We will have to record it at cost price. So sales minus gross profit. This will be added. So after doing this subtraction and addition, we will be able to find out the value of inventories as on 31st of March. So as you saw, if it is before, the approach will be slightly different, and if it is after, the approach will be slightly different. It is no point to by heart. You can logically think and ascertain the values. Clear? Based on this, we will look at the question. See, combined with this, Institute tests us on two topics. One is goods sent on approval and one more is goods sent on consignment. Let me give you a brief of this too. Goods sent on approval. Now, what is this? An arrangement of goods sent on approval. See, sometimes businesses come out with new products or new type of services. If they want to enforce sales, they cannot expect the opposite person to trust it instantly. So what every businesses do, they will try to give out it as samples. Along with this samples, they will make sure if the product requires the approval after spending a particular amount of time with it, they can give some number of days. That is, you can consider this, use this and send us the approval. If you like it, we can close it as sales. So this arrangement will be called as goods sent on approval. So goods sent on approval will not be concluded as your ultimate sales because you've just still sent it for sample or testing. They will consent, that is, if they are okay with the product or service, when they conclude, clearly communicate to you that this is been approved, or it can also be rejected. If it is approved, then it will be classified as sale. If it is rejected, you take it back to your inventory. This was about goods sent on approval. There is one more case called goods sent on consignment. Now, what is this consignment? This was a simple sale arrangement wherein if a party or a business organization has to enforce the sales in different localities, they were appointing someone called as consignees. The goods premise will be sent to the consignee, wherein the possession will be given to the consignee, because if the immediate demand is arised, he can immediately generate the sales so that the sales can be pushed there. So the person who sends the goods will be called as consignor and the person who will receive will be called as consignee. Keeping this into consideration, how will it impact inventory taking? You will understand in a brief while we take up the question, guys. Yes. A trader prepared his accounts on 31st March each year. Due to some unavoidable reasons, no inventory taking could be possible till 15th April. As soon as you see this, just categorize whether it is before or after. This is which particular scenario. This is after the financial year. On which date the total cost of goods in his godown came to 50,000. So as on this date, the value is reflecting at 50. The following facts were established between 31st March and 15th April. So one by one, we will have to consider the impact it could have and find out the value of stock as on 31st March. You are required to ascertain the value of inventory as on 31st March 2022. So what is the stock of goods given? Stock value of goods 50,000. Remember, this is after the financial year. So based on that, we will denote addition or subtraction. Sales 41,000 including cash sales. See, in this particular chapter, it doesn't matter whether it is cash sale or credit sale. You're only concerned about whether it is a sale or not. Now, connecting to this, there is also sales return. Don't you think we can net off and show this? Yes. So be careful about such pointers. You can also show it separately. Since we were able to ascertain it easily, I am just showing this as a net off value. So sales was 41,000. There is a return on of it 1,000. Remember, when it is sales, I cannot directly take the sale value. There is a profit element involved. I can only take cost of goods sold. So I have to remove the profit. Observe in the question, you can also find the profit percentage given. One important consideration here is you should also cross check whether the percentage is given on sales or on cost. So in this case, they are giving it on sales itself. So it becomes comfortable to us to ease out the process. Yes. So sales, should this be included with respect to the inventory taking? The sales is resulting between 31st March of 15th April. What are we doing? We are finding the value as on 31st of March. Should it be considered as on 31st March? Yes. So what will I do? I will add sales minus gross profit. So we will write down the values. First, we will consider what all information is given in the question. Then there is purchases. Again here cash or credit purchase doesn't matter. Purchases 5034. Purchase happened between 31st of March to 15th April. Should that impact my value of stock as on 31st March? No. So what will I do? I will subtract. Yes. Next, on 15th March, goods of the sale value of 10,000 were sent on sale or return basis to a customer. The period of approval being 4 weeks. He returned 40% of the goods on 10th of April, approving the rest. See, when such points are given, it becomes very important for you to note what is the question telling. They are clearly communicating it has been approved. So this is the case of goods sent on approval. The customer was billed on 16th April. Now, first of all, let's figure out, will this have an impact on your value as on 31st of March? The goods is sent on which date? 15th of April. So, if I have to consider as on 31st March, was the stock of goods pertaining to those which were sent on approval was lying with my GODA? Yes. So, this is to be considered, is already there, not separately considered, is already there in the value of stock as on 31st of March. Fine. He returned 40% of the goods on 10th April. So whatever goods is coming back to me, does this impact for the valuation of stock as on 31st of March? Will this impact? No. So this 40% of 10,000 is nothing but 4,000. Will this impact? No. So I will simply ignore this. Correct? Yes. Proving the rest, the customer was billed on 16th April. Now here, what is that one more point of view which you have to see? On 15th March, the goods has been sent. What are you actually doing? Finding out the value of goods as on 31st of March, correct? So on this date, 10,000 worth of goods from the value is being sent for sale on approval basis. 40% is being returned. However, it is being returned on 10th of April. It doesn't matter because I'm finding out the value as on 31st of March. But what about the rest? What about 6,000? 6,000 was supposed to be taken to your value of stock as on 31st of March. Yes or no? As on 31st of March, this is part of your inventory. Yes or no? So what should I do here? I will have to consider this 6,000. I hope this is clear to all of you. On this 6,000, what was supposed to be considered? We have the gross profit margin, remember, so we cannot directly take it at selling price. So that need to be removed and then the net amount will need to be considered. So let's write down these points, whatever we have discussed till now. Sales, that is normal sales, which was 41,000 minus sales return 1,000 minus 1,000. This is your returns. So 40,000. On this, what is the gross profit margin given? Minus gross profit at 20%. So 40,000 into 20%. This is 32,000. So this will be taken and then goods sent on approval 6,000. On this gross profit at 20%. So that is 1,200. you'll be left with 4,800. Let me put this in a table so that presentation would be comfortable for you to understand. Yes, we have covered 2 points. Let's also consider purchases too. So there were purchases since we are finding out the value of stock as on 31st March. Any purchases made after 31st March has no consideration or no impact. So I will subtract that. Purchases 5034. Next, the trader had also received goods costing 8,000 in March for sale on consignment. So in this case, trader had received goods on consignment. Remember, I told you about two parties, consigner and consignee. When the wordings is telling the trader received the goods, the trader here is acting as a consignee. Now here, what is the consideration we need to consider for this 8,000? Let's read further. 20% of the goods had been sold by 31st March and another 50% by 15th April. These sales are not included in above sales. Correct? Because it is not at all my goods. It is represented by me to the consigner. Correct? So this should not be included in my sales. But observe here, you had received goods of 8,000. Till date, 70% of the goods is sold. That is 20% plus 50%. 30% is still lying with you as a stock. Now this 30% is represented by how much? 2,400. How did I get this? 8,000 into 30%. So this 2,400, if it is lying in your go down, don't you think you will consider this while making the physical count? Yes or no? Now this 2,400 should be considered in your valuation of stock as on 31st March? Yes or no? No, you need not consider this value of stock because this does not belong to your quantity. So, minus goods sent on consignment 2,400. So if we calculate 50,000 plus 32,000 plus 4,800 minus 5034 minus 2,400, 79,366. This will be your value of stock as on 31st of March 2022. Just few pointers to break down. If you just understand the dates, you can easily crack such questions. That is inventory taking. Let's observe the last question. Physical verification of stock in a business. This was physically verified, was done on which date? 23rd June. The value of the stock was 48 lakh. The following transaction took place between 23rd June to 30th June. So directly let's look into what is the requirement. Determine the value of stock on 30th June. So they are making the inventory counting as on 23rd June. We need to consider what all transactions has happened between 23rd June to 30th June and ascertain the value of stock as on 30th June. Value of stock as on 23rd June 2022. That is 48 lakh. Now let's understand the transactions one by one. Out of the goods sent on consignment, goods at cost worth 2,40,000 were unsold. Now, goods were sent on consignment. Remember in the previous question, the wordings was goods received. So you became consignee. In this case, goods are sent on consignment. So what does this indicate? That you are acting as a consigner. Goods worth 2,40,000 were unsold. Now, when you had actually sent the goods out of the business, while you are counting this on 23rd June, Had you counted this per proportion of 2,40,000 into your value of goods? No, because this was not at all present in the business. Remember, there was a physical verification done. The goods was already sent. So you still had not counted this proportion in your value of stock. The next question is, does this belong to your value of inventory? Yes, because you are a consigner here. So what should we do for this? We will add. Simple. Goods sent on consignment 2,40,000. Next, purchases of 4 lakh were made, out of which goods worth 1,60,000 were delivered on 5th of July. See here, they are just asking us the value of stock and not value of physical stock. If the question was value of physical stock, then the proportion with respect to 1,60,000 getting delivered on 5th July would definitely have an impact. So since this purchase is for total value worth 4 lakh, this belongs to your stock. So total entire amount we will take it here. Purchases which happened between 23rd to 30th, will that impact the value of stock as on 30th June? Yes. So this should be included in your value of stock. So what will we do? We will add purchases of goods, that is 4 lakh. Next, sales were 13 lakh 60, which includes goods worth 3 lakh 20 sent on approval. Half of these goods were returned before 30th June. Reading should be very careful here. Half of these goods were returned before 30th June. Now, first of all, 13 lakh 60 was your total sales, which includes goods worth 3 lakh 20. First of all, to conclude this as sale, we understood while I explained you goods sent on approval, the customer's approval is required. Now, what they have done in this 1360, they have also considered 320. Is that correct? No. 320 is still not my concluded sales. Reading further. Half of these goods were returned before 30th June. That is, we are considering the value as on 30th June. Half of this were returned. Has the question been mentioned anywhere that the other half is approved? Nowhere you can see that line. And if nothing is mentioned with respect to approval, you will definitely not make any assumption here. You should be very careful about this point. So what is the status of this 3 lakh 20? There is no approval and this is not at all a concluded sale. So this 320 still belongs to your stock. So can I consider it as sales? No. So first what should I do? I have to remove this from 1360 because it is not at all your sales. Clear? Next. Goods are sold at cost plus 25%. Remember, I was explaining you about this percentage. Always the percentage should be taken on sales. But here it is taken on cost. 25% on cost is nothing but how much? 1/4 on cost. So if I have to find out on sales, it is nothing but 1/5 on sales. So in other words, it is nothing but 20% on sales. Clear? So now, what are they telling here? Goods are sold at cost plus 25%. However, goods costing 2 lakh 40 had been sold for 1 lakh 20,000. So remember, like we solved in the previous question, normal sales, abnormal sales, that is what is happening here. Goods costing 2 lakh 40 has been sold for 120. Are we making profit here? No, there is a loss. The value of goods was 2 lakh 40. That is being sold at 120. So there is again a loss of 1 lakh 20,000. Is this clear? So now the other 2 points which are pending is with respect to sales. We have to show what? Cost of goods sold. So we have to remove the profit element. So first sales, which is 13 lakh 60,000. In this, I have to take out goods sent on approval because it is not a concluded sale. It is included in your stock still. 3 lakh 20,000. 1360 minus 3 lakh 20. 10 lakh 40,000. In this 10 lakh 40, there is goods worth 2 lakh 40 sold for 1 lakh 20,000. So anyway, from this, we are supposed to reduce gross profit, normal sales, 10 lakh 40 minus 2 lakh 40, sorry, 1 lakh 20, that is 9 lakh 20. On 9 lakh 20, 1/5 or 20%, 1 lakh 84,000. And on abnormal sales, there is a loss of 1 lakh 20. How? 2 lakh 40 was the cost price minus 1 lakh 20 was sales. So you are making 120 loss. So net, if I have to look at this, there is just 64,000 which will be reduced here. 64,000 alone. Now this 64 is nothing but taken by netting 184 with 120. Be careful with that. So what is the value we will take? 10 lakh 40, 9 lakh 76,000 minus. So if we solve all of these, 48 lakh plus 2 lakh 40,000 plus 4 lakh minus 976, 44 lakh 64,000. So this is what value of stock as on 30th June 2022. I hope you understood the mechanism of solving all of the question, guys. Especially non-historical cost method and inventory taking will demand some conceptual clarity. Since I have taken some time for practicing questions, I have just limited to explain the concepts with respect to those points which is getting covered in the question. So I hope this will definitely give you a good practice with particularly this chapter where most students plan to skip. Don't do it, guys. It is a simpler one. Just invest this time and complete it off. Hope this will definitely give you that confidence to also pick up inventory in your exam question. Until I see you in the next video, keep giving your best. Prepare really well, guys. Give your best shot. Take care. All the very best.